Are your PPC campaigns suddenly underperforming even though you haven't changed a single thing? Well, you're not alone. Many advertisers struggle with mysterious performance drops, not realizing the external factors like seasonality, competition actions, other economic shifts that are happening that could really be the culprit for the decline in your PPC campaign. I'm Ameet from Hopskit Media, and this is Sarah from Sarah Training. We're both ranked among the top 100 PPCers globally. We both have a combined experience of 30 plus years managing campaigns from local businesses all the way to top Fortune 500 companies. We've seen and solved these external impact challenges countless times. Today, we're breaking down major forces that can make or break your PPC campaign. So even though your strategy might be perfect, we're going to look at what exactly to watch for and how to adapt when those forces hit. So we're going to break down economic forces, technological forces, competitive forces, social forces, regulatory forces, and environmental forces. So a lot of forces there. Here's the thing that we say to all of our clients. You can't out PPC the world, which is something that Sarah really, really loves saying to everybody, but you can prepare for it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to spot these forces early and adjust your strategy accordingly. So we've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So let's get into it. Economic impacts on PPC. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
So immediately for me, when we decided to do this topic, there were two big ones that I picked out. So the two biggest ones that I picked out, and we'll spend the rest of the time after I talk about these two going through a list of every single one. But anti-consumerism, so just people are getting tired of like the constant like buy messaging. You see this a lot if you're on social media as much as I am. People are just sick of it. It's a tough one to follow when we are in advertising. And a second one would be just like all the antitrust concerns. Just again, with all this, and when I say antitrust, I'm sorry, I don't actually mean the antitrust or in Google. I think that could be a whole nother topic. When I say antitrust, I mean less trust in advertisers, right? So there's again a movement, and again, you'll see these chats happening on social media of people that don't trust advertising and believe if your brand has to advertise, then your brand must not have value. Because if you're having to advertise, then you're telling people that people don't just organically, and again, I'm using buzzwords, come to your brand. So it's an antitrust if you have to buy ads. People just want to be influenced into getting them.
That is totally fair. That's interesting.
So as we get into the list, sorry, I mean, I know we have a big list, so we're probably going a little bit fast, but just um, one of the ones, and again, these are affecting us probably as we speak. So economic is a kind of big factor, and you talked about this in your intro, but inflation. How I've seen this change is I was managing an account one time, and the big question was like, well, why are the prices higher? You know, the prices were higher because of inflation and the inputs cost more. And so it looked like our ROAS had continued to improve year over year. The reality is we had a little bit of an advantage because prices increased. So, you know, you have to shift those goals accordingly, but that's going to be an external input into your campaigns is why are the prices up? It may not look as favorable to consumers. Also, the recession. Again, these are external factors. Just people aren't buying. You know, it goes without saying, you know, we've all post-COVID come out of a tough environment. I think we forget that it was the high of all highs. It's got to equal out. We're in an equal out period. Slash potentially a recession, slash potentially a time when things are more expensive for day to day. And again, we're an online working, at least on my side, on products. You know, we're seeing the recession play a factor. And also when it comes to lead gen, which is your side of the business, and you can speak more to this a little bit, but you know, people may not be as willing to change providers or change a B2B relationship because again, purse strings are a little bit tighter. Interest rates, I don't need to say, I don't control the interest rates. I'm not the Fed. I'm not an economist, but I do know that when interest rates go up, again, the cost to borrow, if you're in like a higher bracket, something that you're peddling online, we're just the marketers, that's going to impact your campaigns. Currency fluctuations, also another one I've personally experienced in my campaigns. And you were probably the perfect people to talk about this. So, in the case of the product that I was working on, the Canada prices were significantly higher than the US prices. Okay, so I didn't know that that was like a thing, and I was like, why is the ROAS like 15 in the Canadian account, but it's 4 in the US account? And it's because the prices were higher over there. And again, I think this goes back to if I'm managing in US, I have a perception, right? So if it's $100 over here, I have a perception of what that product would be and what that ROAS would be. I don't live in Canada, so if you were to say 100 Canadian dollars, like you would easily be able to tell me I could buy for that, but I may not have that day-to-day perception of that. So again, as an ad buyer, as somebody, potential client outsourcing to an agency like Ameet's, think about that when you're working with her. Is like, how much does she understand that? And then also, last but not least, and again, we'll go through this section, supply chain disruption. And again, when I come from the e-com side, huge. The number of times we've been gearing up, we have all the campaigns ready, we're ready to launch. That's in a full media plan. This is how much we're going to spend this quarter, and the product isn't off the boat. Guess what? That money has to be reallocated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so that was very rapid fire.
Yeah.
So
well,
now
we're trying to keep these short, and
yes.
we're a little bit on a time crunch today, so we've got to move a little bit faster. But the next section I wanted to talk about is technological forces. So there's 5 that I've seen. 2 are the ones that I'm going to probably talk a little bit more in depth in. So there's privacy regulations, ad tech advancements, mobile phones, which is a big one, voice search, which is continually a big one, and then AI. The 2 that I really want to focus on are privacy regulations and AI, really, in this case. The major story is really truly with Google's flirting with taking third-party cookies away from us. And then obviously, I believe that was August, early August, at some point, mid-August maybe, where they came back and said that they had come to an agreement with the regulatory body in the UK that said, hey, you don't have to take your third-party cookies anymore. We've got a couple things that we want you to do instead. And that's great and wonderful in itself. But I think for us as an industry, a couple platforms already went ahead and started removing those third-party cookies, which was a big thing that actually has aided in us seeing a decline in performance, just because a lot of folks weren't really sure how to get the information that they were looking for. But then also conversion tracking kind of fails a little bit when we don't actually have our cookies right across the board. So now, as we're kind of navigating through that, we'll probably start seeing performance increase or get better as we kind of navigate through everything and figure out how to collect first party data ethically, how to bring it back into the platforms, make sure that AI is being, or at least the usage of AI is transparent and accountable as well, which is a big thing that I've been talking a lot about more. But what we're going to start seeing is a bit more restrictiveness on the privacy policy regulation side of things. States, I believe there were 11 states in the US that actually came back and said that they were going to put in their own piece, just like California did with the CCPA. So those are things that we need to kind of just like keep an eye on, just because when we're looking at our tech stack, obviously as privacy regulations change, so will how our tech stack reacts, if that makes sense. I don't know if I made any logical sense there. But so that's kind of really that. And then on the AI side of things, obviously it's becoming more deeply integrated into all the platforms that we're using right now. Google obviously has always led with machine learning, especially actually way back in the day when it started actually correcting our spelling for certain words. That was machine learning at that point, right? So the best thing that we can do in terms of the integration of AI is kind of staying accountable and transparent with everything. So something that I've been working a lot on lately is actually figuring out how to keep AI transparent and accountable. And I know that I'm sounding like a broken record right now, but the idea is essentially logging what AI is doing, so the changes that it's making, so then we're able to go backwards and figure out why certain things happen in the campaign. So especially for things like Performance Max or even Smart Bidding, which are basically black boxes, we'll be able to kind of go backwards and be like, okay, Google made this kind of change on this day. It did this, and this was the influx or the deflux of that campaign. And I think keeping those pieces with us will be something that's actually going to be quite a bit of a game changer, just because we'll be able to explain what's happening to our clients a little bit more. I really, really hope that made sense, but it made logical sense in my mind. So the next up is competitive forces.
Awesome. So yeah, so competitive forces in this category, I have increased competition. Unfortunately, you can't just tell your competitors to just not do ads. Like, that is a factor. And increased competition is going to essentially cost more because we're paying at a cost per click. If there's more people in the auction driving up those clicks, those are going to change. It's definitely an external factor affecting your campaigns. And when you really kind of get sort of micro about this analysis, it's not just your campaigns, it's essentially your keywords, right? So there are situations where you will see two different totally unrelated products driving up your keywords. When I was working in the housewares, right, I would see beauty blenders or blenders eyewear overlap with a household blender, right? So we are bidding at the keyword level with Google Ads, and sometimes there's more stiff competition on a keyword. Okay, drilled that one really hard. Market saturation. This is similar to increased competition, but really what I'm talking about here is like the saturation with advertisers in a particular market. I used to see this a lot in the auto space. I worked in automotive. A certain town might just have more auto dealers, especially like more Ford dealers. One thing a coworker kind of taught me is like literally going down a map and like going up and down the highway and seeing how many dealerships are in that area, and that's going to affect like your campaigns writ large. Like, how much should you target? How far are people willing to drive? Like, what does that saturation look like in that local market? And then I also included landing pages, email, and SEO as competitive forces. And you might think, well, that's odd because I make my own landing pages, I do my SEO and my email campaigns. But I'm saying you don't know what the outside is doing when it comes to this. So I've many times seen a campaign go through a period of not performing. Well, it's because the competitor is running a huge sale, or they've sent out a big email, running their sales through email. You really, really don't know the true marketing mix of your competitors. You don't know how much they spend on SEO. You don't know how much they're spending on PPC. And as much as we try to guess and we try to tell Google, tell us how much the competitors are spending, you don't really know. And that is the beauty of it, is what is your perfect marketing mix for your ideal customer. And then also I have special forces, and this leads back into what I said earlier, so I'm not going to get into too much depth about this, but changing consumer preferences. Again, we at a time when, consumers are not only being more cost conscious, but it goes like deeper than that. There's fashion that goes in and out of style. During the pandemic, I probably wouldn't have been wanting to sell blazers. I would have been wanting to sell sweatpants, right? So there's shifts that happen. With people, I think people hopefully in today's day and age, are being more like thinking about sustainability, right? Like, not just buying a product to throw waste into the environment. But again, these are consumer preferences that change with time. Social media platforms, this has a lot of impact on our campaigns. Are people just simply not Googling as much because they're looking on TikTok? I mean, it comes down to that. Are they wasting their time?
We've got Search GPT as well.
That too. And I literally on social media read someone's comments, and they said, "Where do you get your news?" And do you know the answer they gave them? I would like you to guess.
ChatGPT.
Yes.
I actually say the exact same thing.
Yes.
Like, if I have a question, I just go into there and I look through. I'm like, you do remember when it made up information,
right?
But it
Yes.
still does
Right.
that. She just stared at me, and I was like, babe, please don't do this anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Influencer marketing, I think that has had, I laugh about it because it's like, you and I are old enough to know that like the OG of influencer marketing is like Michael Jordan having his name on shoes. Like, and so now because it's on social media and it's different, like social media influencers, it's somehow different. No, it's the same thing. watching the Martha Stewart documentary right now on Netflix, right? The OG influencer. So these are forces. These are forces that now have a name for them, that are forces in marketing. And then again, I'm going to try to go fast. Ethical concerns goes without saying, certain things, maybe depending on certain situations in the world, are no longer considered ethical. That is an external force to your business, and you better hope that your business is on the side that maybe we're capitalists, right? Makes the most amount of sense for your business. And then again, cultural shifts, where are people living? Again, these are all somewhat tied together because this is what makes up the unique DNA of businesses in the world writ large. So I'm not going to beat that one too much because it's similar.
That is totally fair. And then the next one that we've got up is regulatory forces. So I'm going to sound like a broken record yet again on this one. First things first, data privacy laws, GDPR, CCPA, created strict requirements around data collection and usage, which is why we're having these conversations even now. Advertisers are essentially expected to ensure that they're getting clear consent and transparency, or ensure clear consent, and that they're being transparent about the data usage and the data collection practices that they're taking. With GDPR, there's actually some really huge consequences that could come with it, which is like I believe it's a 20 million euro, I want to say, fine, or 4% of your revenue under GDPR if you're caught not practicing. So like there's real implications on this side of things. And then platform controls. Obviously there's always going to be scrutiny against Google in terms of how much market share they have and how much dominance they have in the search advertising space. But we see it with the antitrust trials. Even now, the US is really trying to and are looking at considering breaking up Google, especially on their monopoly on search. And that's something that we're going to have to keep a close eye on because that will drastically change how we work in that platform as well. And then obviously kind of looking at what the aftermath of the antitrust trials are going to look like, and how that impacts the advertising landscape. Does Google get to remain Google, or do they have to basically split themselves up, very much like what they're doing with Meta, with all the properties that they own as well? So very interesting times and very murky waters in terms of figuring out how to navigate through that. And really right now, it's just a matter of having a plan B of, well, where else is our audience? And very much to Sarah's point beforehand, or Sarah, I'm talking about like, you're not here, your point beforehand, about having like that marketing mix, really like focusing on that marketing mix and making sure that we actually have something that is a mix and it's not putting your eggs in one basket. Those kind of things need to be considered now. Have that plan for your business, your in-house company, or your clients and whatever else. So that's something that we've kind of started internally at HopSkip, is just kind of just sitting there going, okay, well, what's going to be plan B if everything goes to in the way of the US government for Google, right? So those are things that we have to remember. Compliance requirements. This kind of goes back to going back and logging everything we're doing. So we need to make sure that we're regularly auditing and documenting all of our AI systems. What information is the AI tool that we're using grabbing, and do we need to actually take that information? Because if we don't, then why are we collecting it? Remembering to make sure that to log the decisions that it's making, so that way we can go backwards and actually make sure that one, it's making correct decisions, but also decisions that we can actually convey back to our clients. Because as AI starts to take over the platforms more and more and more, human oversight is always going to be a big thing, really, right? We've talked about AI ad nauseum, really, at this point, where it doesn't understand context, it doesn't understand cultural significance, it doesn't understand those big pieces that humans do. So we have to make sure that we're still looking over everything and ensuring that it's doing the correct things. And if it's not, then we're reaching out back to whoever owns that tool, giving them that feedback, or making the adjustments ourselves, which might be just a complete removal of whatever tool that we might be using at that time. So there's that part. And then the forward-looking considerations is just really knowing that this isn't the end, this is just the start, which I know sounds absolutely horrible and sucks, but it is what it is. Just because Google is not removing third-party cookies from Chrome right now does not mean that it's not going to happen. So although we can be really, really happy and throw our parades and do all that great stuff with that announcement that came out in August, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're out of the woods. We're just not currently having to race towards a finish line like we had initially thought we were going to. So those are kind of that part of it. What are the last bit of the forces, or what are the last few forces that can affect a PPC campaign?
So the last couple we put in other, because it's hard to sort of bucket these, but natural disasters, right? So, I mean, we're seeing hurricanes hit Florida. That may be a time to maybe pause your ads, or dial them down. That's definitely going to affect sort of your business and whether or not it's even kind of nice to advertise when people are going through things. Global events, very, very similar when you see uprising in companies or countries or areas, or frankly, you see people, impacted by certain things. It's the same thing. You have to think about your advertising campaigns and if people are even in the mood to buy at that point in time. And then if it's, again, ethical to be pushing that. Seasonality, that's always going to be a factor. If you're selling snow boots, think about that. Technical issues. And when I say technical issues, it ties into everything you said above. But we're working in a platform and these are technical forms of advertising. So we need to be conscious of that type of thing. Tracking and such, and then algorithm updates, SEO. Are you going to beef up your PPC at that point? I heard someone's take today and I wish I knew who it was. So it's not our take, but the take was essentially that the entire, it's all going to be pay to play now because of the degradation of SEO. I'd argue that it always was pay to play. It's just maybe people need to catch up.
Yeah, that's really fair.
Absolutely fair. So anyway, we'll go back to my quote that you said: we can't out PPC the world. We can't out PPC, everything that's going on. And then I guess we can wrap up. We did it. We did a good job, friend.
I guess there you have it. Your guide to navigating the external forces in PPC. Remember to like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe for more actionable PPC insights, and drop a comment below telling us what external forces impact your campaign the most, or what you feel impact your campaign the most. We'd love to dig deeper into the topics that you care about for future episodes. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye!